Welcome to Food Shrinks.
Hey guys, welcome to Food Shrinks. I'm Molly C.
I'm Molly P.
I'm Clarissa.
We're your food shrinks, three eating disorder and addiction therapists who walk the walk and are real life friends. We're sharing the kinds of honest, funny, and unfiltered conversations we have when no one's recording, except now. Here we are. Pull up a chair. Welcome to Food Shrinks.
Okay, so we had
Molly,
a question
please press
from a
record
listener.
again because I was getting really uncomfortable.
Say that again. You two were talking at the same time, and I didn't hear either one of you.
So I was saying that you pressed record because we're trying to get the background into the foreground.
Yes. Yeah.
Because
what were we talking about? Go ahead,
we
Clarissa.
had a listener question, right? What was the listener question?
There wasn't exactly a question. There was just a, hey, will you guys do an episode on laxative abuse?
And I said,
Molly C said, Molly,
I'm really working on my appeasement, I'm really working on my appeasement.
yeah.
And I said, no, I don't want to talk about laxative abuse.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agreed in that I don't feel very qualified to talk about that specific, if we want to get into specifics about a substance. That's one that I don't have a lot of, I haven't had a lot of clients with that specific experience, but I imagine that we could talk about it in at least general terms, or at least I could, but I know Clarissa might have a different feel on all of this.
Yeah, I feel like we actually really should talk about this and we should know about this because a lot of people in the eating disorder world struggle with this. And I have my own personal experience in recovery from this. And when I recovered from this like 20 years ago, people didn't even know what it was like and they couldn't talk to me about it. I had like the head of psychiatry of an eating disorder like clinic say, can you share with me your whole experience of what it's like to recover from this, because nobody talks about it because it's so shameful. But
if we are talking about it, I have a lot of experience treating it. And the thing I'm actually always shocked by with laxative abuse and with bulimic exercise is how many people, professionals, doctors, like MDs, will say that's not bulimia.
What?
How many medical professionals will say, well, she's just on the treadmill for 3 hours. I think they probably think laxatives are, but I think it's really not talked about, right? It's incredibly hard to get off of. I've treated someone who had to taper off of them and stay on one suppository a week for a year. I mean, it's like not that we're comparing lethality or comparing impact, but I think we say the same thing about a lot of things. And I'm happy to anybody listening. But wow, I mean, talk about progress, not perfection, with something as serious as laxative abuse.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, I know for me, it was like I just couldn't throw up anymore. And that was my compensatory behavior. I hadn't really found my love of exercise bulimia yet. I hadn't got there yet. And so laxatives was the next logical place. But I think what people don't understand is like you think you're finding this like freedom, like all right substance use disorders, but it actually keeps you so stuck. So now you have to know where every bathroom is. You can't go far from home, and you need more and more and more until you're at like a box and a half a day. And what was actually, the car accident I was in was horrific, but what was horrific to me was that the car was upside down and my laxatives were everywhere. That was the more shameful thing for me, is that my secret was exposed.
That everybody knew that you were a laxative. I don't even know that I knew you were a laxative abuser. So this is, I mean, I take back wanting to talk about this today. I didn't realize we were getting the inside scoop on Clarissa.
Yeah, and the most frustrating part of recovery is because the body has been flushing water for so long. You then can eat health right, do movement, all of this stuff, but your body is so inflamed. So the moment I went off laxatives, my body gained 12 to 15 pounds and held on to that 12 to 15 pounds for about 4 to 6 months, which is the most like talk about wanting to reinforce behavior. Like recovering from substance use disorder was hard. This was harder.
Yeah. Well, I've only from a bulimic perspective, I've only had very, very, very serious exercise bulimia. I've never, I guess I had some purging, more from when I had bariatric surgery, but I always think that, I mean, I think the real dilemma in healing bulimia in general is that you can't do anything until you stop the behavior. And
Mm-hmm.
stopping the behavior almost always requires weight gain, if
Mm-hmm.
not stopping the thing that's getting you high. And that's what I found with people. I'm like, we can't treat we got to, the purging is, stopping purging is first, and then we can work on everything else. And I remember that with my exercise bulimia. I know we're talking about laxatives. I just
Mm-hmm.
experience in it. It's like, just remember my trainer's like, I can't train you while you're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going to my friend's house, and she just had my godson. And she's like, are you even here? Like, because I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
machine, when can I get on the machine? Can I do it for like 30 minutes? I mean, it's so all encompassing
Yeah,
that
it's the obsession, and it's like for all of them, right? Whether it's like it's all about distress tolerance, 100%. So if I'm eating food and I can't vomit it or I can't take the laxatives, I have to sit with the distress of knowing the food's in my body, and also with the exercise. Like at least like I can move, and there's some story I'm telling myself that it's getting rid of it somehow. So it's being able to like sit with the distress and still eat, still live your life.
how did you do it?
I don't know. Like, I
That is literally
honestly,
what I was just thinking right now. I was thinking, how did I get over this exercise bulimia? And I don't
yeah,
know the answer.
I just like, there was that part of me that just knew I couldn't use the laxatives anymore because I was at like over 2 boxes a day, and that I knew it was going to go really, really poorly. And I honestly just had to keep waking up every day believing it was going to get better. And I
But
can't even tell you the moment when all of a sudden, like my body just trusted me again and went back to, it was
was
like
the
almost.
car accident the impetus though? Like when you saw all the laxatives in the car and you're like, what was what was this moment of grace that you had where you're like, okay, I gotta like at least try to put down these laxatives?
Yeah, it wasn't then. I continued to use. After that, I can't remember exactly what it was. I think it might have been somebody told me if you continue using, you're going to have a prolapse. And like the idea of that, because I like to look and appear a certain way.
What's a prolapse?
So basically, like your colon loses the ability to stay formed, and then like that comes out your bum.
Wow. So you can't hold in your feces enough.
Yeah, so people will have like a prolapse colon. It's basically just like you haven't used the muscles, so you're not strengthening the muscles because it's just literally like water coming out the whole time. And so I think it was that was like, oh, like anything but that. Which is you never know what the things are that are going to
Very true.
do. And but if I had had any idea, and this is not to scare the listener, if this is something that you're dealing with, it just means you need a whole extra world of support. If I had had any idea at that moment that recovery from it would have been so hard, I don't know that I could have done it.
how did you get the recovery though, Clarissa? Did you go to somebody who specialized in laxative abuse? Did you go to an eating disorder specialist? Did you go to your medical doctor, your parents, like, or did you do it
Yeah.
on your own? What did you do?
Well, like most things, I treated it myself. And I was just like, it probably makes sense to stop cold turkey. I did that with alcohol, ended up in the psych ward. Why would this be any different? And it's just shame, right? I had so much shame. Who could I ask? Who could I tell? And the only reason that I ended up speaking to that eating disorder psychiatrist is I was like, when does this end? Like, I am in month 2 and this is so painful. When does this end? And she was like, nobody talks about this. Will you come and talk to me about it? So I was able to talk to her about it, but she wasn't necessarily like supporting me through it. She was just kind of wanting to know what I was doing, how I was managing the distress of it all. Um, and yeah, it was just, and I don't even know how I was managing the stress. I had a full-time job. I was just working. I was exercising probably more than I was before. So, and I probably was restricting, I imagine. But all of that, honestly, all of that kind of balanced itself out when my body felt like it was back and less inflamed. Then I didn't feel that same compulsion to change, compulsion to fix, or like do something about it.
So there was no like medical support through any of that. Anybody saying like, hey, maybe we need to make sure you're checking your electrolytes or, whatever. I mean, I don't know. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
grasping at things here. But if your body isn't holding on to water, I imagine that there would be like an electrolyte imbalance, especially once it started to hold on to water and as you progress
No,
through that. Yeah.
yeah, that's a very valid point. And I didn't like, I mean, my parents are medical. I didn't tell them what I was doing or what was happening. I was running a busy restaurant.
It's so interesting the shame. I mean, it's like I was just reflecting on how I didn't want to talk about it. And I like, I'm like pretty well known eating disorders therapist. And I'm like, oh, like it's because it just, the connotation of it is so tricky, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so tricky.
Yeah, well, people can be rewarded for exercise bulimia, but very rarely do you get rewarded for like purging in a toilet and like your face coming out inflamed or like knowing that you're like having diarrhea everywhere you go.
You always had to make sure you knew where bathrooms were, I
I
imagine.
know, like I can still tell you on the drive from the house to the cottage, from where I live to work. I know where McDonald's always has really great bathrooms, just for the
Right.
listener. They care about clean.
In case we're helping everybody.
Well, whenever we're traveling, Clarissa will always be
Right.
like, bathroom, bathroom, bathroom. I've got money for, because in Europe you have to pay to use the bathroom, no matter where you are.
Now, this is not about that. It's just like I also
But
love
it's
to
just like
eat.
you just clock
Yeah.
it. Right. It's
Yeah.
just
Well,
part
you
of
know
your
what I'm
wiring.
realizing? What it's, I mean, just that, like, eat like, I feel that, I'm sure you guys are like this in some way, or maybe not. Like, I can tell you the calorie count on anything I eat. I don't do it. But if
Hmm.
you said to me, look at this plate of food, how many calories do you think this plate of food has? I could probably accurately tell you how many calories I'm eating within 100 calories just from
Mm.
Right. Yeah.
so
It's just that.
Yeah.
calories in
Yep.
my 5 grams for like 100 years. Like,
Hmm.
it just like old habits die hard. I
Yeah.
don't utilize that, but like if you asked me to, I'd be like, well, yeah, like
Right.
672 calories. Like,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just that
Well,
ingrained.
even me having like a processed food addiction, my eating disorder is stronger because like I won't eat ice cream because of the fat. Like that kind of stuff never appealed to me because
yeah,
I just knew how like, that kind of stuff would make you gain weight.
Yeah.
incredible. But can we go back to Molly's question, which is like, how do you think, like, so you took yourself off the laxative cold turkey.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you went to that psychiatrist, did she give you any, like, help you?
No, Nope. How do I wish it went? That
Yeah.
I had a safe person to be able to talk to that would have been able to walk me through what it was going to be like, because I think that would have helped me feel better and know the trajectory and know where I was at, as well as arm me with some distress tolerance skills, maybe give me supports, like Molly said, with the electrolytes, all of this, like just to be able to share what was happening with somebody safe would have been amazing. And I know any of us would be there for anyone who was listening to this episode and was struggling with this.
Yeah. I feel like it's really important to say to the listener to like, believe me, as a really, again, like I don't think I'm changing anyone's tune on if you're active, but it is a dangerous, lethal disease,
Right?
especially in vomiting and in laxative use. I mean, it
Yeah.
is,
Well,
it
part
can,
of
it will throw
the
you a heart
car.
attack really quickly. And then
Yeah.
just be able to say that to, not that that's going to change anyone's behavior, but it's that lethal. It really, really is.
Well, we don't know exactly what happened in my car accident, but they looked at my electrolytes and they were a mess.
Oh
And
wow.
so we cannot necessarily say that wasn't a factor that actually played a big role in it, because I'd been restricting and on laxatives for so long.
Wow.
So if you could talk to the listener who maybe is thinking about getting off of the laxatives, or is in the middle of that process, like what kind of trajectory, like, you know how we can talk about it with other things
Yeah.
like food, alcohol, meth, whatever, like we can kind of give people a trajectory. What is it for laxatives once you come, and obviously it might have something to do with how much, how often,
Yep.
right?
Exactly.
But yeah, give us
Dose
kind of
and
a
like,
idea.
yeah. So I was probably misusing laxatives for like 4 or 5 years. A pack and a half, 2 packs a day. It took about 4 months for my body to start to trust again. And it really is just like believing in the process and I'll tell you one thing, getting through it, I never wanted to go back. That was,
Just one
yeah.
question for the listener though. When you say it took me 4 months, you're also saying you gained weight during that time.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's my experiences. And we don't like to talk about our therapist lives that often. We like to talk about our personal lives. But in my
Mm-hmm.
experience, the thing that keeps people trapped, intentional use of that word, and myself included, in
Yeah.
that bulimic cycle is like, well, I'm gaining weight.
Mm-hmm.
All I
And
ever say is like, we're gonna have to gain weight and we will take that weight off. That weight will probably come off very naturally once we teach you how to eat again.
mm-hmm.
But to me, that's what
Yeah.
feels so trapped in that bulimic cycle.
Absolutely. And I will say I was able to let myself know this is water weight. I don't even I
Whatever,
don't know
even if it
even know if they had Google back then, but I had looked up something on the internet which let me somewhat know, what that this was just water, and but I did have to go buy all new clothes.
I can't believe you did that and you came off. That's such grace without
Yeah.
any help.
It felt like I had no choice.
So when we're talking about coming off of it though, like, so like, are there withdrawal symptoms other than retaining water and maybe like having to talk yourself through like the self-talk that's like, oh, am I eating too much or do I need to go get a pill? What other side effects or withdrawal effects should we be looking for?
Yeah, I think it took a while for my body to recalibrate in terms of being able to have like a normal bowel movement.
Okay.
That was definitely a part of the process. And I think it was pretty uncomfortable at first to have a normal bowel movement after not being used to that for a while.
How did you
Um,
tolerate the discomfort?
well, I don't know. You just have to kind of sit there and get through it. Like,
But but I'm saying like, so
yeah,
I guess because I'm thinking about like, so I'm a person with IBS
yeah,
constipation, right? So like,
This
there are
episode's
times
really
when there's a flare, and I'm like thinking, the last thing I want to do is use the bathroom. But you have
Right.
to find your way through it. Like, how did you talk yourself through it? Did you, use a heating pad on your belly? Did you,
Mm.
like, what are some of the things that you would say, here, listen, here are some things you can do to help ease that discomfort. I can't take it away for you, but I can help you find a way through that's loving.
Yeah, I wish I had you in the bathroom with me, Molly, because I was not in a loving place, and I was like in my early 20s, and I was just
Yeah.
like, it's like, and probably what I was doing is you did this to yourself. I
Mhm.
Ah.
imagine that is what the
Mhm.
language I would have used. And like, you just have to get through this. If you hadn't done this in the first place, then you wouldn't be in this situation. Because we
Yeah.
don't have compassionate voice. I did not have a compassionate voice back then. Like, I would have been able, I think, to do it so much differently. And what you're saying right there is like such a loving, loving way. I just didn't have those skills at that time when I was struggling.
Yeah.
It's one thought, and I think this about every single thing I've recovered from, and which is a lot. And I feel like we discount grace, and something that I'm hearing, and I think the reason both of us can't remember what happened,
Mm,
we just had these moments of grace. We just had these moments where like the inner voice wasn't so critical, wasn't maybe it was critical in a loving way. It was like your inner voice was like, girl, you gotta stop.
mm-hmm.
And in my experience, like, because that's what happened to me with everything. I just
Yeah.
remember it with drinking mostly. Like, I just had this moment where it was like, you're an alcoholic. And I knew this thing when that happened, because I think probably because I'm an addictions therapist. I knew this thing, which was, Molly C, if you don't act on this in 24 hours, you're going to lose the grace. It makes me want to cry. You're going to lose
Mm-hmm.
because I don't like the word excuses, but the rational lies are going to come back in. The addiction's going to come back in, and it's going to say
Mm-hmm.
it's not that big of a deal, or it's going to say you need like. So what I really think happened as I'm listening to this, sorry, I'm like giving you unsolicited advice, but I guess that's what
No, it's
yeah,
great.
I think you heard the voice of grace, and I think you acted on it. And so if you're listening, these graceful voices come in. It's just addiction comes back 24 hours later. It's like addiction walks out to get a cigarette, to get some cigarettes, goes to the corner store to get some cigarettes, and Grace will come in and say, "You got to stop doing this."
Mm-hmm.
Have like 24 hours to take action. And I think it'll come again and again and again, right? I mean, I don't think it's
Yeah.
a one-time thing. I've had a couple of times in my active alcoholism where the grace has come in. I remember one time I was working at this boarding school and the show intervention called, and I was like, wait, are they going to have an intervention on me? And then I had this graceful moment, like, maybe you should deal with your alcohol problem. But then I was like, well, I'm busy and I'm working and I'm sure I'm fine. And everyone else is drinking like me too, blah, 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 whatever, like whatever. Right.
Yeah.
And then it came around again, like 10 years later. And, but I think there's something really important about this idea that like, there are graceful moments we all have, because that's what you did. I mean, that's the story.
Mm-hmm.
Something deep inside of me said, you got to stop this. You're going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to die. So I just did it. And I did it in a completely unhealthy way that I would not recommend to anybody who drinks.
Disclaimer on this episode, yes.
Bulimia is lethal. That's what's true about a lot of recovery. It's a spiritual path.
Right. But and I also think, it really was one day at a time. Is like I just had to like show up and like, do some movement, keep going. And I also think that there's probably a level of disassociation that I was doing as well during it, which I don't feel bad about. I
I mean,
think,
just like cutting off and like focusing on, yeah, I mean, you got to have that.
yeah, that I think like just gets us through the
Yeah.
toughest moments.
Huh. Girlies,
Yeah.
wondering what our main takeaway from the show is today.
That is a great question. I think for me, it's that this conversation probably needs to continue. We need to keep talking about the things that are the most shameful, the things that are not talked about enough, um, and just be honest about our experience and also offer that there is a softer way. There is
Mm.
support out there, and that we can offer ourselves up as that support if anybody needs it. That's where I would
Mm-hmm.
go. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say just because, I went through it is I see you if you're still struggling. I know how hard this is. Recovery from it is challenging, but it's so worth it. And, if you need the support, we're here. You don't have to do it alone.
Well, my takeaway is that, yeah, like kind of what Molly P is saying. Like, I do like to look in places that are ugly and dark. I don't know what's happening with me today, and I love and accept myself for that. But yeah, I think sometimes these really hard conversations end up blossoming and blooming, and maybe uncomfortable or whatever, like end up blossoming and blooming such beautiful flowers. I cherish when we get to share our personal stories and like the real underbellies of them with each other. And I know our community loves it too. But just a reminder, like that's why we have to be telling them and looking at them and not being so scared of our shadows. I feel really full from this conversation.
Definitely. Same. Well, if you want to hear more about this topic or something else, if you have questions, whatever it might be, or you just want to reach out and tell us if you love or hate these episodes, you can email us at asktheshrinks@foodshrinks.com. Thank you,
See you next
everyone.
week.
Thanks for listening to Food Shrinks. Quick reminder, this podcast isn't a substitute for professional medical advice. Always consult your healthcare provider for guidance suited to your needs. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to help us reach others on the recovery journey. Take care and remember, freedom with food is possible. See you next time.